Bonjour, bienvenue en notre salle de presse pour notre rendez-vous quotidien en ligne et en direct sur EBS. Nous sommes aujourd'hui le jeudi 21 janvier. Comme vous le savez, ce soir, les chefs d'État et de gouvernement se réunissent par vidéoconférence pour discuter de la coordination de notre action contre la Covid-19, y compris le processus de vaccination, les propositions circulées au cours des derniers jours sur un certificat de vaccination, les instruments disponibles pour limiter la propagation du virus et notre coopération avec les pays tiers en ce qui concerne le vaccin. La présidente von der Leyen participera avec le président Charles Michel à la conférence de presse qui se tiendra à la fin de cette réunion. Voilà, ce sont toutes nos annonces pour aujourd'hui. Nous pouvons maintenant passer à vos questions et je passe directement la parole à Mose.
Yes, hello, thank you very much, Eric. I have a question about the sanctions against Belarus, which is prompted by the arrest last week of a prominent Belarusian journalist by name Andrei Alexandru. So I would like to ask, now since the sanctions have been in place, the third round of them at least since December, all these restriction measures, I wonder if you have an assessment of the effectiveness and because it seems that the suppression continues in Belarus and no, let's say, dialogue has started between the government and the opposition. So what was your comment on that? Thank you.
Thank you. A question for Peter.
Hi, Mose. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the question. As you know, the restrictive measures against Belarus or restrictive measures against those responsible for the unacceptable repression in Belarus are constantly under review. So we had 3 waves of listings. Now there are individuals and entities listed, and this process is open-ended as long as the unacceptable developments in the country continue, as long as the repression continues, as long as the authorities refuse to engage in the nationwide inclusive dialogue about finding the solution to the crisis. Now, about the effects of the sanctions, you know that this is something that takes a little bit more time to take effect and to see the effects of this. But this is, of course, also constantly reviewed, and member states, because they are in charge of the implementation of the sanctions, can do their own assessment. So at this stage, I would not go into this because it's a little bit premature. But what is important is that, yes, the repressions have not stopped. All those who have been detained without any ground, only for the peaceful expression of their views, are still being detained. So the bad things are still continuing in Belarus, and that's why the sanctions regime is still open and under review and can be extended if there will be consensus among the member states to do so.
Thank you. Are there other questions for Peter on Belarus today? That does not seem to be the case. Alain, I know your question is not on Belarus. Let's stick to foreign relations questions for Peter. Athanasios.
Bonjour. Can you hear me? Can you see me? No.
Yes. Go ahead.
Small lag, but okay. Could you please give us an update of the whereabouts of Foreign Affairs Minister Çavuşoğlu today in Brussels? What time is he meeting with the High Representative? What press arrangements are there in place? Who else is he meeting in the Commission today or tomorrow? Thanks.
Thank you. In fact, the Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu just arrived a few moments ago. There was a joint statement done by the HRVP and Minister Çavuşoğlu. It should be available online on our audiovisual channels shortly or very quickly. So, yeah, the meeting just started, is ongoing. And as for other engagements by Minister Çavuşoğlu, I think this is more for the Turkish side to communicate with whom is he going to meet. On the side of the Commission, I can only confirm that he is having the meeting with the High Representative, Josep Borrell, at this moment.
Thank you. Other questions for Peter on foreign affairs? Momchil.
Good afternoon. Yesterday, the authorities of Lithuania announced that Lithuania has banned the entry on its territory of a well-known Russian singer called Philip Kirkorov. The reason is that Mr. Kirkorov has performed in Crimea and is supporting the annexation of Crimea. But as Mr. Kirkorov was born in Bulgaria, he has at the same time a Bulgarian passport. So he is an EU citizen. So in this case, how could Lithuania stop him from entering its territory? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure actually that this is a question for Peter, probably rather for Christian. So, Christian, I don't know if you can comment on this.
Yes, hi, Motul. No, actually, this is an individual case, so we would not have any comment on this. It's for the national authorities to assess individual cases. Thank you.
Thank you. So we move on, still on foreign relations. Lorne.
Yes, good afternoon. Lorne Cook, Associated Press. Peter, I wanted to get back to Turkey, please, to the FM's visit, this kind of charm offensive. Last month, the Commission renewed programs for Syrian refugees in Turkey worth hundreds of millions of euros over the next year. That's really good news for Turkey because the money will ultimately be spent in Turkey and not anywhere else. But at the same time, Turkey's passed this law providing for close surveillance of internet giants like Facebook. I assume you've seen that and you're probably concerned about the censorship. And the president also wants to disband the Turkish Medical Association because they pointed out discrepancies in the government's COVID-19 statistics. He's even called a senior doctor there a terrorist for pointing it out. It just seems to me that this is really one-way traffic at the moment, and there doesn't seem to be an improvement from the Council's December conclusions. Why is it important now to try to mend fences with Turkey? Shouldn't we just be saying, well, Turkey, look, you've got to sort this stuff out first?
Thank you, Lorne. Today's visit should be seen in the context of the tasking of the European Council of the Member States on the Commission and HRVP continue the engagement with the objective to achieve the normalization of the relations or improvement of the relations and restart the constructive cooperation and dialogue. So this is what the HRVP is pursuing because we stated many times that the interest of the European Union is to have this constructive cooperation with Turkey, and the HRVP was talking about it also in his statement, so it will be available shortly to you, so we will find some answers there. And on the first part of your question, indeed, I mean, the situation and developments in Turkey are something we are following very closely, and we don't shy away to raise them also with the Turkish partners, and this is also one of the issues which High Representative Borrell pointed out today, that the situation and internal developments in Turkey on many fields are source of our concern. But this is a reason not to ignore Turkey, but this is the reason to discuss it with the partners, to convey our views and to achieve the change of the atmospherics and of those tendencies which we don't wish to see from a partner who subscribes or claims to subscribe to European principles and values. So this is all being discussed, so this is work in progress, and I will be happy then to debrief you on the content of the meeting when it's over. But this is, again, this is part of the ongoing process and engagement as set out by the EU member states at the very latest in their Council conclusions from December.
Thank you, Peter. I move now to, I believe, Swiss issues. Alain.
Oui, effectivement, Eric, bonjour tout le monde. Eric, ce matin, la nouvelle négociatrice suisse était en visite à la Commission européenne avec Mme Rizzo. Une visite qui a duré 2 heures et qui était attendue. C'était la première depuis très longtemps. Je voudrais savoir quel est votre assessment sur cette visite. Est-ce qu'elle a été productive? Est-ce qu'elle a permis d'accomplir un pas, et quel pas, vers une application de l'accord cadre qui était donc au centre de la discussion? Merci.
Merci Alain. Cette première rencontre était simplement une prise de contact entre effectivement Madame Le et la Commission européenne, plus précisément Madame Rizzo, C'était donc une toute première discussion qui a certainement permis à la Commission d'écouter les messages que Madame Le a apportés aujourd'hui. Donc je crois que c'est comme cela qu'il faut voir les choses, une simple prise de contact entre Madame Le et la Commission européenne. Stéphane.
Oui, merci. C'est sur le même sujet. Est-ce que c'était une rencontre, disons, oui, qui a duré apparemment 2 heures? C'était une rencontre à deux où il y avait d'autres participants. Et est-ce que Madame Loy apportait des documents ou des indications dans quelle direction elle voudrait aller? Merci.
Je crois que je vais être clair. Je ne vais pas commencer ici à discuter de la composition exacte de chaque réunion qui va avoir lieu ou qui pourrait avoir lieu entre la Commission européenne et la Confédération suisse et des documents apportés par les uns ou par les autres. Notre position sur l'accord entre l'Union européenne et la Suisse est bien connue. J'ai eu l'occasion de la répéter ici à de nombreuses reprises. Nous attendons de la part des autorités suisses qu'elles progressent sur la signature de l'accord, puis sur sa ratification. Nous avons bien entendu le souhait des autorités suisses d'obtenir de notre part un certain nombre de clarifications sur un certain nombre de sujets sur lesquels nous attendions et nous attendons des précisions. Je pense que maintenant le processus est engagé de ce point de vue-là et nous verrons où il mène. Stéphane.
C'était il y a 2 ans, mais depuis, on a eu le deal avec les Britanniques, la situation a changé. Il y a la question de la Cour à Luxembourg, que les Britanniques, qui a été épargnée aux Britanniques. La situation a changé. Est-ce que ça n'a pas, disons, changé le décor aussi de cette discussion aujourd'hui? Est-ce que ça a une influence sur le débat? Merci.
Les négociations internationales que mène la Commission ne sont pas une pièce de théâtre. Il n'y a pas un décor. Il y a des intérêts de la part de l'Union européenne et de la part de la Suisse qui, je le rappelle, ont une relation extrêmement étroite. Et l'accord vise à approfondir cette relation et à mettre de l'ordre dans un ensemble d'accords sectoriels qu'il était devenu difficile de gérer. Notre position, elle est bien connue, je la répète ici régulièrement, elle n'a pas changé. Bien entendu, nous sommes un partenaire ouvert et donc nous avons bien entendu exprimé notre disposition à écouter les clarifications souhaitées par la Suisse. Voilà la situation dans laquelle nous sommes, Brexit ou pas Brexit. Merci. Je pense que nous pouvons passer à d'autres sujets. Je ne pense pas qu'il y ait d'autres sujets relations extérieures. Et donc, je passe la parole à DANEK.
Very much. Hope we can hear each other. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
My question is on Czech law. Czech MPs have approved law that is waiting for further approval. The law would introduce a mandatory quota on Czech food. On some selected Czech food, the supermarkets will be obliged to sell at least 55% of selected food, and the quota would rise annually up to 73% of food that would have to be with Czech origin. And there has been a lot of criticism. There has been some fear of reaction because this is clearly breaching rules of internal market. So I was wondering if you could comment on that, if you can tell us what the reaction of European Commission is going to be, and maybe if you could also clarify if member states are actually allowed to support local producers, since in the farm to fork strategy there is advice to buy local. So how member states can do that? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia. And perhaps on farm to fork, we'll move later.
Yes, many thanks, Eric, and many thanks, Victor, for your question. First, I would like to start my reply with outlining some of the basic principles of the internal market. So the free movement of goods and services are our strongest asset to ensure the free flow of supplies within the internal market, and also it is our best tool to address and ensure recovery for all. So whenever member states and national governments are taking national measures, they need to make sure that this is not done at the expense of the fundamental principles and values which are enshrined in our treaty. So whenever restrictive measures are taken, they should be limited to what is strictly necessary and also proportionate, and they cannot be discriminatory. Also here in this case, the measure, or when measures concern food supply, it is also very essential to ensure the free movement of foodstuff and food goods within the internal market, because this is something related to the food security. Related to the concrete draft measure that you mentioned, according to our understanding, the legislative process is not yet finalized. Further steps are still needed until or for the law to be adopted. So we are monitoring the situation very closely, and if and once this legislative piece is adopted, we are going to analyze it and have a very close look. Regarding maybe the second question, just from the internal market point of view, I would like to stress that whenever member states want to support local products, this cannot be done in a discriminatory way between member states. So it cannot be done in a protectionist way to support domestic foodstuff or domestic products.
Thank you very much. Miriam, do you want to add something on farm to fork? Okay. Thank you very much, Sonia. I move now to Oliver.
Salut. J'ai une question concernant le plan de relance belge. J'ai lu dans la presse belge aujourd'hui qu'il y avait une rencontre entre la Commission et le secrétaire d'État responsable pour la relance. Bien sûr, la Commission est assez positive sur le plan. Mais ce qui m'intrigue, parmi les projets que les Belges envisagent et qui devraient aussi en fait soutenus par les fonds européens, il y a le projet de la construction d'une nouvelle caserne militaire quelque part en Flandre. Il y a 3 villes, 3 endroits qui en fait espèrent d'avoir cette nouvelle installation militaire. Et dans la livre du 6 janvier, j'ai lu que en fait, le gouvernement belge envisage qu'une partie des coûts de cette caserne sera payée par le fonds de relance européen. Donc ma question, c'est la suivante. La construction des casernes, est-ce que ça figure aussi parmi les objectifs que vous voulez en fait remplir atteindre avec le Next Generation Europe? Merci.
Une question pour Martha, je pense. Martha.
Merci Olivier pour ta question, on y va. Alors, tu as posé une question très très spécifique sur un projet très spécifique qui pourrait potentiellement être financé sous certains fonds, sous le plan de relance. Comme tu sais, il y a plusieurs fonds, dont je ne sais pas exactement à quel fonds tu fais référence, nous pouvons le vérifier. En ce qui concerne la facilité pour la reprise et la résilience, comme tu sais très bien, nous sommes en train de discuter avec les États membres de leur plan préliminaire, et nous sommes en discussion intensive avec tous les États membres. Nous ne sommes pas à une étape où nous discutons, où nous pouvons commenter de façon officielle sur les propositions qui ont été faites. Donc tout ça, c'est en cours, mais en ce qui concerne les objectifs de cette facilité, comme tu le sais très bien, il s'agit de renforcer la résilience des États membres, c'est-à-dire que les États membres sont appelés à inclure des réformes et des investissements qui répondent aux recommandations aux pays qui ont été données ces dernières années, et également soutenir le Green Deal et donc la digitalisation. Donc c'est tout ce que je peux dire sur ce sujet. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Y a-t-il d'autres questions pour Martha sur les plans de relance, la situation économique en général? Raph, you have a question on this? No. David.
Oui, merci Eric. On a entendu dire que vous allez publier une nouvelle version des guidelines ou guidance pour les États membres pour la Recovery and Resilience Facility. Je voulais savoir quand est-ce que vous allez la publier et quelles sont les modifications que vous envisagez. Si vous pouvez dire quelque chose avant la publication, évidemment. Merci.
Merci David. Effectivement, je peux confirmer que nous sommes en train de faire une update de la guidance qu'on a publiée donc, au mois de septembre. La raison est très très simple. Comme tu le sais, un accord politique a été trouvé en décembre entre les co-législateurs, le Parlement et le Conseil. Un certain nombre d'éléments de changements ont été apportés au règlement sur la facilité de la reprise et de la résilience. Et donc maintenant, ces changements doivent être reflétés dans les lignes directrices qu'on va donner aux États membres. Pour la date précise, je ne peux pas te confirmer pour l'instant, mais ce sera dans les prochains jours. Merci.
Merci. Y a-t-il d'autres questions sur les plans de relance? Martha. Martha Carazo.
Hello, I don't know if you hear me.
Yes, is it on recovery plans?
Is it? No, it's not. That's why
Okay.
I wasn't talking. It's about the advance of the virus.
Okay, hold on then. Let's see if we have other questions on this before we come back to you, Martha. So please only keep your hand raised if it's a question for Martha on the recovery plans or the economic situation. Mathieu.
Oui, bonjour. C'était juste pour demander un petit complément. Quand Martha parle de changements, d'un certain nombre de changements qui ont été apportés, est-ce que tu peux donner des exemples, s'il te plaît?
Alors, Mathieu, je propose que tu sois un peu plus patient, donc c'est-à-dire que cette guidance va être donc publiée ces prochains jours. Mais comme tu sais, voilà, il y a eu des changements qui ont été apportés le règlement sur la facilité de reprise et de résilience, notamment ce qui concerne les critères d'évaluation que la Commission va utiliser pour faire l'évaluation des plans. Donc tout ça va être bien sûr reflété dans cette update.
Merci. Je reviens maintenant, je pense que nous avons clôturé la discussion économique. Je reviens donc à Martha Carazo. Martha.
Hello. I know that some countries concerned about the advance of the virus, concretely the new strain of the virus, they are advising about the use of specific masks, and they could only authorize like FPP2. I wonder if the European Commission has any recommendation in this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. A question for Stefan.
Hello, Martha. Hi. I think when it comes to monitoring the situation with regard to the virus and making sure that we follow good scientific advice, it's always very good to check first with the colleagues of the ECDC. They're monitoring the situation. In any case, as far as this strain is concerned, but as far as all other strains are concerned, it is very important to stick to the advice that is already been out there, meaning that it is important to keep the distancing measures. It is important to wear the mask and so on. But again, ECDC is monitoring the situation, and we leave to ECDC to come up with new advice if they deem this important or fit to deal with the new strain. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me remind you that there is a press conference this evening on the actions related to COVID after the VTC of leaders. So there are some questions which I will ask you to address there. Are there other questions, nevertheless, on the health situation? Patrizia.
Thank you, Eric. This is Patrizia Antonini with ANSA Press Agency. My question is in particular on freedom of movement. So I see there is a lot of movement on this topic. I see there are letters, documents, and obviously in view of tonight VTC. But in the meanwhile, I would like to ask you, because I see there are two groups, more or less, two groups of countries. On one hand, some are asking for more health measures at the borders in order to face the mutations, COVID mutations. And on the other side, we see countries pressing on having solutions in order to have traveling. So what could be the solution, according to the EU Commission, to strike a balance between these two situations? And I would also like to know the state of play on mutual recognition of tests. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, of course, we will not anticipate the discussions which are going to take place during the VTC this evening, but there are certain elements related to your first question in particular, which are in the communication which was adopted by the college on Tuesday. So I'll pass the floor to Christian Wiegand on this question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric. Patrizia, what I can say on this is the following. The Commission continues to push for closer coordination of travel-related measures at EU level. We are, of course, in regular contact with all member states, and we are closely monitoring the situation. In particular, the Commission is assessing whether new developments, such as the newly identified variants of concern, require updates of the current framework on coordinating restrictions of free movement in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So concretely, the recommendation we have put out in October. The President will discuss, as Eric said, the response to the latest developments with leaders today at the European Council video conference. The key principles remain clear. We need better coordination of measures, and any restriction of free movement must be proportionate, non-discriminatory, and clearly communicated to citizens. As President von der Leyen said yesterday in the European Parliament, the blanket closures of borders in this situation makes no sense.
On your second question, I would give the floor to Stefan.
Hi, thank you very much for this question. As you know, the Commission has adopted in December a proposal for a recommendation on tests, including ways how to use tests and also how to ensure mutual recognition of these tests. This was a proposal for a recommendation to be adopted at Council level. This text is now at the level of the Council, which is discussing this text. I think if you would like to have the latest state of play of where the discussions stand at Council level, I would invite you to contact the presidency of the Council. Thank you.
Okay, are there other questions for us today on health-related issues? I see some hands raised. David.
Oui, mais merci Eric pour cette question. C'est toujours à propos des restrictions au mouvement, la position qui a adopté aussi la Commission, qui recommande aux États membres de ne pas recommander les voyages non essentiels. Vu que ce soir, on va, si on comprend bien, vers plus de restrictions, etc., je voulais savoir quelle est la base scientifique de votre position. Parce que j'ai regardé aux données publiées par le ministère de la Santé italienne et j'ai vu que les cas, entre guillemets, importés de coronavirus en Italie, c'est le 0,2%. J'ai vu les données belges avec 160 000 personnes qui sont allées à l'étranger pendant les vacances de Noël et de la Nouvelle An, mais il n'y a pas eu une explosion des cas à leur retour. Il y a eu des cas, des personnes qui n'ont pas respecté les règles, les quarantaines, etc., qui ont créé des dégâts, mais les personnes qui ont respecté les règles n'ont pas créé des dégâts. Donc voilà, je voulais savoir quelle est la base scientifique qui motive votre position de dire non au voyage non essentiel. Merci.
Stéphane.
Thank you very much, Davide, but I'm not sure I can give a lot of information at this stage. What I can only refer to is, of course, the scientific work that is being done by our colleagues of the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control, which are following the situation in the different member states on the basis of input from the member states. The ECDC is also working, as you know, on a platform which allows to monitor this more quickly and more easily, making this information available to the citizens. But again, I think the main point of entry will be the scientific input and feedback that is being monitored by the ECDC. Thank you.
David, tu as un follow-up?
Oui, vu que l'ECDC a toujours dit que les problèmes, ce n'était pas les voyages, je me demande si la base, au lieu d'être les données scientifiques, n'est pas un non-paper, comme on l'appelle, de l'Allemagne, que l'Allemagne a présenté et duquel on retrouve beaucoup d'éléments dans votre communication de cette semaine.
Merci David. Écoute, la communication a été adoptée, elle va être discutée cet après-midi ou ce soir plutôt par les leaders. Ce qui est clair, c'est qu'il y a une préoccupation générale sur l'état sanitaire dans lequel nous nous trouvons. La situation est sérieuse. La présidente de la Commission européenne a eu l'occasion de le répéter, y compris à la conférence de presse hier à laquelle tu as participé. Et que dans ce contexte, nous marquons simplement notre compréhension du fait qu'il faut être ouvert aux nouveaux développements qu'il peut y avoir en ce qui concerne la pandémie et donc avoir des discussions pour continuer à avoir une approche qui soit la plus flexible et réactive possible. Thomas.
Bonjour, merci. I have a question. I have two questions actually, and I want to separate them. I'll first ask the first one, and I'll do the other one in a follow-up. First one about Pfizer's decision to distribute less vials to the European Union, since it is possible to get 6 doses out of the vial instead of 5. What is the Commission's opinion on this? That Pfizer decided to do this.
Thank you. Question for Stéphane.
Dank u wel, Thomas. Thank you very much, Thomas. As part of our contract, we agreed on a delivery of certain number of doses within a defined time frame. This is the project we follow for all our contracts, including for the contract of Pfizer. The fact that the 6th dose can be extracted when, of course, using the appropriate syringes is very welcome, as this will help increase the number of doses that would be available. Now, in terms of the contractual follow-up that is given to the situation, it's essential that we first have a discussion with member states and the Commission in the context of the steering board before any decisions regarding changes to deliveries are made in this regard. What is important for us is that the agreement is fully respected and followed to the letter. And in the meantime, of course, we continue discussions with member states. We offer support where we can, where it's useful, to ensure that deliveries take place as agreed upon and remain uninterrupted. Thank you.
So now we come to your follow-up, Thomas.
Vaccine contract that was published. I have two questions about this. Why did the Commission agree with the article saying that it is not possible for member states to give the doses they don't use to third countries without permission of CureVac. So they can only do this with the permission of CureVac. And do the other contracts also include such an article? And then again, about this vaccine contract, about the liability. To what extent will member states have to pay compensation for side effects? Because in the contracts, it seems to be that member states will have to pay. So can you please elaborate on this?
Stefan.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for these two questions. The first question is, why does the company want to be in a position to give an agreement to the fact of a donation? Well, you have to know that the advanced purchase agreement, and you have seen almost the whole text of the advanced purchase agreement concluded with CureVac, contains a lot of detailed provisions regarding a broad variety of issues covering liability, supplies, use of the products, and so on. And so if a member state donates doses to a third country, the manufacturer, the company, wants to be sure that similar agreements are in place in the context of this donation. Secondly, in many cases, donations will most probably mean that the doses will not be first delivered to the member state, but that they will go directly to the third country. And that requires the need for good legal and practical arrangements in which obviously this company has to be involved. So this explains the reason why the company is involved or is expected to give the green light to such donations. With regard to liability, Thomas, your second question, I think there is not a lot I can add to what has already been said. The main principle is, was, and will be in these contracts that we stick to the liability rules as they're laid down in the Product Liability Directive. This means that the vaccine developer is liable. The APAs, the Advanced Purchase Agreements, have not changed this at all. So companies remain liable. In certain cases, member states, under very specific conditions, may intervene, may indemnify the company. Now, what is very important here is that whatever the situation is, the rights of the European citizens are protected, either because the company will intervene itself, either because in very specific cases, the member state may intervene and offer the compensation. And this is a principle that applies to the CureVac contract and applies to all the other contracts as well. Of course, taking into account the specificities of each product and company. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. We continue on this issue. Angela.
Hello, thanks for the question, for taking my question. Yes, it's on Pfizer's delays. I wonder if the European Commission has been informed by the Italian government of its intention to investigate legal actions against Pfizer, whether the European Commission has been informed or not. I wanted to know what you think of this idea. Thanks.
Stefan.
Thank you very much. Let's maybe take a step back first and see what has happened. Last week, we were informed by the company that there would be delays with the deliveries. President von der Leyen contacted the CEO of the company immediately, and their assurances were given that deliveries for Q1 would take place in Q1, and that in the next quarters there would be an increase of the production. The next day, Friday, discussions took place with the company, with the member states, to follow up on this. And following this discussion, Pfizer announced that there would be a delay of 1 week, meaning the week that we are having now. In this week, there are, I would say, interruptions of the deliveries. But as from next week, the deliveries continue again according to plan. So I think this is the situation. We, of course, continue to follow the situation with the company. We continue to follow this, obviously, with the member states. I would like to stress, though, in this context also, that the deliveries are a matter between the company and the member states. The Commission has signed a contract on the general framework, but the actual purchase orders, the actual delivery arrangements are handled bilaterally between the member state and the company, which is totally normal because the member states are best placed to know what they need when, taking into account their vaccination campaigns. So the situation, of course, is discussed in the steering board with the member states. And as far as we're concerned, it's very important that we continue ensuring timely deliveries of everything that has been agreed upon. Thank you.
Angela, you have a follow-up.
Pfizer, or you think it's not a diplomatic move in this context?
We didn't understand the beginning of your question, Angela. Can you repeat?
So you think there is room for a legal action against Pfizer, or you think it is not the case to do it?
Angela, I think it's not for us to try to guess what are the intentions of the Italian government if it has made such a statement. I think that Stefan has presented to you the situation as it is, as it has been explained to us by the company, and then each member state, of course, will react as it sees appropriate. Let me just remind you that our objective as the European Commission is actually to rapidly increase the number of deliveries of the vaccine, and that is what we are trying to achieve with Pfizer-BioNTech. Verena. You're online.
You can see me?
You're online.
Super. I'm Verena with the German press agency. Stefan, I wanted to follow up with something you said. You said the fact that the sixth dose could be extracted from a vial is very welcome because it would increase the number of doses available. It is my understanding that the EU contracted a certain number of doses. Therefore, the total number of doses would be the same, even if you could, if now it is officially confirmed that 6 doses are possible per vial. So maybe you could clarify that if there is actually an increase of number of doses because of the fact that there are 6 as opposed to 5 doses in each vial. Thank you.
No, for sure. I caught that as well. I think that what Stefan meant was something different. I will pass him back the floor.
Yes, indeed. I think what I meant to say is that the fact that from one vial you can extract a 6th dose means that more doses are available, which is, of course, good news. We know that there are a lot of production capacity challenges, and it is good news if you can extract a 6th dose from a vial. But it is true, as I also said, that the contract is based on the number of doses. Now, what this means contractually speaking in our relation with the company, there I wanted to stress that discussions are ongoing with the member states in the context of the steering board. Thank you.
No, allow me to react here. I think that what we mean is that within a vial we have more doses, which means that there is a speeding up of the delivery, if you wish, of doses compared to the initial plan, in the sense that we can now extract 6 doses from each vial that is received, subject, of course, to the appropriate conditions being met. It doesn't mean that we increase the number of doses that is being bought, but in any batch that is received, there are more doses which can be extracted. Verena.
Yes, thanks for the follow-up. Just also to clarify, is the reason why production and deliveries are slowed down at this point, is this connected to EMA's decision to allow 6 doses to be extracted from a vial? Is there a connection between the two or not? Thank you.
Stefan.
I think both are not connected. On the one hand, there's the possibility to have a 6-dose extract from the vial, but the vials are still produced on the basis of vials. It's vials which are produced. We understand that the delivery delays of this week had to do with the company having to take a step backwards to prepare and adapt its production a little bit. We understand that this was the issue, rather than the fact of whether or not you can extract 5 or 6 doses from the same vial. Thank you.
Raf.
Yes, hi. Just a small question on the delivery delay and the state of play, if I may. Stefan, I would like to know, if we look at the state of play now, what percentage of doses will not be delivered this week? And when you say that they come back, that they will be back to normal delivery next week, when will the backlog be made up? Will everything be done by February 15, or how exactly will that work?
Stefan.
So, okay, we understand that this week there are interruptions in the deliveries. As from next week, we go again to the 100% deliveries as is agreed, and in the weeks that follow, the backlog that was created this week will be again handled. So that in a matter of weeks, indeed, the deliveries which have to take place in the context of Q1 will also be delivered in the context of Q1. Thank you.
Ralph, you have a follow-up?
Yes, a very short follow-up. Just can you put a percentage on what has not been delivered next week, and when, and how that will be recouped?
Stefan.
Yeah, well, as from next week, 100% will again be delivered. What will not be delivered this week depends a little bit on the different member states. There are differences between the member states depending on the arrangements between the member state and the company. So there are differences in terms of delivery per member state. But what is important is that as from next week, we go back to 100% of the deliveries. At least this is what the company assured us, that as from next week, again, we go to 100%, and that the backlog which was created in this week, depending on the different member states and the arrangements between the member state and the company, will again disappear. Thank you.
Louise.
Yes, hello. Just one more question, sorry, about this conflict or discussion about the 5 and 6 doses and who has the right, so to speak, to the 6th dose. Stefan, I was wondering, could you please give us a little more background on this steering board where you say the discussion is ongoing about this, and how often do they meet, and when do you expect to have a sort of joint position between all the countries on this versus Pfizer, whether it's right that Pfizer is now recalculating the deliveries or not? Thank you.
I cannot give you a time schedule. This is being discussed with member states and the Commission. The steering board is a board with representatives of all the member states and the Commission to make sure that the interests of everyone is taken into account. This steering board meets in general on a weekly basis, but I cannot tell you exactly when what will be decided. However, this is, as I said, followed between member states and Commission quite closely. Thank you.
All right. Are there other questions for us on health-related issues? I see Ivan has a question.
Thank you, Eric. I have a question about vaccination at Western Balkans, especially in Montenegro. So should I ask it now, or?
Sorry, but not on health. Sorry, I
question
didn't catch...
about vaccination.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, of course. Apologies.
Montenegrin Minister of Foreign Affairs yesterday sent a letter to President von der Leyen, HRVP Borrell, and Commissioner Verhely, stating that the distribution of vaccines to Montenegro would be significant assistance. So did you receive this letter, and will the European Commission help Montenegro in order to procure and distribute certain doses of vaccines? Thank you.
Many thanks, Ivan, for your question. So we are in a position to confirm that we have received a letter by the Foreign Minister of Montenegro addressed to the President of the Commission, and as you well said as well, to our HRVP and to Commissioner Varhey. The letter, of course, will be replied in due course. More specifically on your questions on support for vaccination and the distribution of vaccines in the Western Balkan countries, you know that the Commission is playing its full part. We adopted a package of 70 million from the pre-accession instrument at the end of December last year in order precisely to be able to help our Western Balkan partners access early on some of the vaccines that have been procured by our member states in the framework of the advanced purchased agreements that have been concluded by the European Commission. And the discussions, of course, are ongoing with the member states. On Tuesday, in the framework of the communication that we presented, we made very clear that the Commission is ready to set up an EU sharing vaccine mechanism in order to be able to facilitate this process. Discussions are ongoing, and we are not in a position, unfortunately, to go into more details, but work is for sure being done in this sense. And of course, you know very well that the objective, of course, is to be able to support Western Balkan partners vaccinate early on, particularly the priority groups. So this is a very important issue, again, that we are working and discussing with the member states.
Thank you, Anna. Are there other questions for Anna on neighborhood-related issues? No, then I would like to come back to Anna van DENSKY, who has been asking for the floor for a while. Anna.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you see me now? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for offering me the last word. But I have a question to Nabila, so it's a little bit back to foreign affairs. Question to Nabila on Uganda.
Thanks. Actually, we had closed the Foreign Affairs chapter, but ask your question.
My question is, what is the reaction of the European Commission on ban of social media in Uganda to prevent citizens and electorate to discuss disputed elections? I remind you that from 13th of January, there is a total ban on all kinds of social platform to stop the discussion, the political discussion on disputed elections.
Nabila, hi, and welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello. Yes, go ahead. Thank you, Anna, for your question. And I would like to remind you that the EU takes note of the announcement of the presidential election results by the Electoral Commission. And to walk you through the EU 27 declaration published on the 20th of January, where we welcome that no major violent incidents were reported on the election day, but regret that the disproportionate role given to security forces according to the election brought forth violence in the pre-electoral period. When it comes to your question, as remarked in the EU declaration on the 20th of January, access to social media was disturbed, and a full internet blackout disrupted freedom of expression, freedom of information, and regular economic and social activities. In particular, this severely hampered the work of journalists, observers, party agents, and others expected to report on the polling results and scrutinize them. So the internet blanket shutdown was unprecedented and disturbed the regular business and communication in Uganda. This illustrated the lack of transparency and the curtailing of freedoms, access to information, freedom of media in the electoral process in Uganda. On Monday, 19 January, the internet connection resumed partially after days of unprecedented blanket blackout, and we called for full resumption of internet services and access to social media.
Thank you. Are there other questions for Nabila today. Patrizia, you have a question for Nabila.
Thank you, Eric. No, I have a follow-up on Ralph's question on percentages of the backlog for vaccines.
No, but Patrizia, I'm sorry. I mean, we've closed now the discussion on this. Let's do this bilaterally, please. Other questions for Nabila? Please only keep your hand raised if it's on this. I do not see other questions. So, Nicolas, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you very much for taking the question. It relates to competition policy, and it follows up on the decision yesterday to fine various video game makers for geo-blocking. My question is, there's another important geo-blocking case, which was the Commission's investigation to pay TV operators. Now, at the end of last year, the Commission lost an important case for the European Court of Justice, which struck down its settlements with Paramount in that case. My question is, what is the Commission going to do about the other settlements with the Hollywood movie studios that it struck in the same case in 2019? Thank you.
Thank you. So a question for Arianna.
Hi, Eric. Hi, Nicholas. I hope you can hear me and see me. Thank you very much for the question. First of all, indeed, let me confirm that yesterday we have indeed adopted a decision fining Valve, which is the owner of the PC gaming platform Steam, and 5 publishers for breaching EU antitrust rules. Now, turning to your specific question on the rulings and what this means for us, let me say that while in its ruling of the 10th of December 2020, the Court of Justice has upheld the Commission's concerns, the preliminary concerns on competition, it has indeed annulled the Commission's decision to accept commitments from Paramount Pictures. We have, of course, taken good note of the Court's guidance about the assessment of proportionality of commitments in relation to the potential effects that they can have on contractual rights of third parties. We are indeed currently examining the 2019 pay TV commitments decision to see whether it should be withdrawn, given that the commitments are substantially the same as those that had been made binding in the 2016 decision, which has been annulled by the Court of Justice. It should, however, be noticed that both the judgment of the General Court and the one of the Court of Justice have confirmed that the licensing agreement with clauses designed to eliminate cross-border provisions of broadcasting services, thus conferring absolute territorial protection for broadcasters along national borders, do give rise to competition concerns. Moreover, the General Court's judgment has supported the Commission view that such clauses would not be exempted under Article 101(3) of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union because they're not indispensable. Last point I would like to make is to remind, however, that the agreements between studios and broadcasters that were subject to the investigation have by now been changed, and these changes should remain unaffected by the annulment by the Court.
Thank you very much, Arianna. Are there other questions for Arianna today? Any other issues? No, then thank you very much, and we will meet again tomorrow here in the press room.